Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I yelled at my oldest son after he called me at work, whispering to me that his little brother shot him while playing Call of Duty. "Sweetie, he's too young to play that game," I shouted into the phone before hanging up, not knowing that my youngest boy found his dad's gun beneath the floorboard. My son was an excellent carpenter, but I feared his generosity would be exploited. I just never imagined that the same people who ordered that wooden cross would be cruel enough to nail him to it. I woke in a tube of ice, only remembering picking up a beautiful woman during my 25th birthday party pub crawl. There was a note next to the tub that read, "Your first kidney had so much cancer, we left the other. Good luck." I told my 3-year-old daughter to stand still as we were going to play a fun game where I was going to draw all over her. She smiled away to herself as I used the marker to indicate to the plastic surgeon what work I wanted him to complete on her body. "I will give you all the riches you will ever need in exchange for your firstborn son. And if you do not have a son by the end of your life, your soul will be mine." After the 17th miscarriage, I started to catch on that it wasn't a firstborn the devil wanted. My wife got me a bracelet with the first initials of our kids on it. Now I lay on the side of the road, paramedics dragging me, as I silently pray for Donna, Nick, and Rachel. My mother told me she was going to help me beat my addiction as she took all my drugs and locked me in the room so that I had no choice but to go cold turkey. She ignored my repeated pleas to let me out as I began to get more and more lightheaded due to lack of insulin. "There are no monsters, honey. They aren't real," I said to my son as I closed his door. I couldn't help but cry and cover my ears, knowing that he was the only acceptable sacrifice this month. "Please, just one more try. I know I can save her." The attendant put a hand on my now wrinkled shoulder. "I'm sorry, sir, but you don't have enough years left now to power the time machine again." "If you really are a goddamn time traveler, then why didn't you tell the authorities about 9/11? "I did," the man whispered into his triple scotch as the tears trickled down his face. "Ground control to deep space. Your emergency protocol for an out-of-orbit spiral is located in your crisis cache." Swiftly opening the cache revealed the truth of my nation's poorly funded space organization. One cyanide pill. I told them my girlfriend wasn't dead, but no one would listen to me. The coroner finally agreed to exhume her body, and then he gave a sincere apology after seeing the countless scratch marks inside the casket. "I'll hold your passport," my guide said as I arrived at the interview center, But I protested, insisted I'd much rather keep track of it myself. That was a demand, not an offer, he insisted, pushing back his jacket to reveal his hand on the butt of a pistol in his waistband. If you can't get it open from the inside, just press this button to ring the bell and I'll be right here to let you out, I assured the new customer as I closed the lid to his sensor deprivation tank. My arm feels strangely numb. 911, what's the address of your emergency? Hi, my husband is downstairs. I'm in our attic, and I just found, oh God, what looks like a box full of severed human tongues. And for my final wish, I want every nuclear weapon to stop existing. As the genie snapped his fingers, I began to hear explosions and feel the heat disintegrating my skin. They say there are 3 deaths: when your body dies, when you're put in the grave, and when your name is spoken for the last time. As I look across the barren wasteland, I knew that the first will be soon, the second never, and the third a long time ago. My girlfriend always hated the leather jacket I always wore because it smelled just like her ex. If only she knew what kind of leather the jacket was made from. Catching my wife with another man in the guest room, I emptied an entire clip into them before settling on the couch to think. My wife called later to remind me that her twin sister and her boyfriend were staying for a few days. The gravity of what I'd done began to sink in. Hundreds of millions took the self-offing pills rather than facing the killer asteroid heading for Earth. The scientists who knew it would miss were all dedicated to population reduction and never broke their vow of silence. Man, you have to tell me the name of your artist, he clapped me on the shoulder, because I love that massive spider tattoo on your back. I never wanted a tattoo before, but at that moment, I truly wish I had one. The demon told me that whatever I pulled out of the sack would be the prize I received at midnight. I pulled out a single dice. I'm not sure what that means. I couldn't believe my wife would argue so hard for my dog in the divorce, but I was thrilled when she said I could pick him up from the vet. When the vet tech apologized for my loss while handing me the box, I knew I lost everything. Not taking my schizo meds for a few days won't hurt, I thought to myself. Staring at the corpses of the robots that replaced my family members, I was amazed at how they could make the oil so red. After enduring years of torture from my parents, I'd vow never to lay a hand on my children. As my palm comes in contact with my wife's bruised face, I remind her that hurting my son is not allowed in my household, even if he hit her first. The new experiment treatment has shown exponential improvements even in patients that were deemed a lost cause. I regret to inform you that you were in the control group. Data from your eye-brain implant reveals that on October the 26th at 13:52, for approximately 10 seconds, you thought about murdering your neighbor, the judge announced. Unfortunately, this is 5 seconds too long to be considered a fleeting thought, and you are hereby sentenced to 20 years confinement for premeditated attempted murder. I paid the kidnappers $50,000 to give me back my daughter. Today, I got her first finger in my mailbox. If it's brown, lay down, John said to himself as he got low to position himself from the hulking animal. John waited for the attack as the animal stood over him, but instead it whispered into his ear, "That rhyme is very nice, but do you have one for if what you encounter isn't a bear at all?" After the bus crash, I was horrified that I was unable to move. I was even more horrified to see all the inmates I was transferring were grinning ear to ear. I traveled the beautiful but empty valley and almost screamed in joy when I finally spotted someone walking towards me. I watched in shock as God collapsed at my feet and began weeping as I was the first person worthy enough to reach heaven. I knew my fate was sealed when Medusa fixed me with her gaze and revealed what the myth never told. That her curse's truth is that you are forever conscious, with an incurable, yet desperate for hope. Why is this train always late? It's starting to get really uncomfortable laying here on the rails. As the boy I was babysitting fell asleep, I finally had a chance to check my phone. A text from 2 hours ago read, "Never mind, plans got canceled, so we stayed home with him." There, time is now frozen for an hour. Do whatever you like. The hour had already passed, and now I realized that an hour can't pass at all. I discovered a letter that chilled me to the bone saying, "My dearest brother, if you're reading this, then I'm dead. Watch your back, for you might be next." The terrifying part is that I never knew I had a sibling. And since bringing up my parents, they have been acting strangely. "Daddy, no!" I cried out as the police officer took my dad away in cuffs. It wasn't until I grew up that I realized that it wasn't sugar he put in those cookies he baked. When my fun and popular twin suggested we switch clothes for the day, I got excited at the thought of hanging out with the cool kids for a change. It's been a year now, and still no one has realized that it wasn't my body they found in the river that day. Seeing my daughter next to the broken lamp begging forgiveness, I took my belt off to discipline her, When I raised the belt and a trail of blood followed, I dropped it in horror, realizing I'd become just like my father. They say that losing a sense heightens your remaining ones. Now, with your nose blocked, your eardrums busted, your eyes and tongue removed, the pain you're feeling should be exquisite. The torturer tapped out in Morse code on his victim's skin. I watched silently while my daughter thrashed beneath her restraints as my husband forced it down her throat. I gazed down at her skeletal and malnourished body and prayed that our improvised feeding tube would help return her to a healthy weight. "My babies! My babies!" cried the emaciated woman as they were pulled from her arms. The nurse could only look on with pity as the ticks were dropped into a dish. After leaving my 14-hour shift, I get a text from my landlord. "Your rent will increase by 5% this month in order to adjust for inflation." I glance at my younger sister, wondering if there was any other way to keep a roof over our heads. My mother fainted, and my father began screaming at me as I carried my infant sister's mutilated remains downstairs. I don't understand why they are so angry, as they were arguing over the splitting of assets in their upcoming divorce, and I was just trying to make it easier for them. While playing The Sims, I realized I didn't really like my family, so I drowned them. Now I can get back to my game in peace. One day, my father burst through the door, wide-eyed and clutching a crumpled flyer, insisting with a frantic urgency that I needed to see the doctor immediately. As I sat strapped to a cold metal chair, the flyer lay before me, its chilling words searing into my mind. Simple lobotomy operation, make nice household pets. I jokingly called out my name. My blood ran cold when I heard my own voice say, "What?" from the other room. Losing my husband was the saddest day of my life, and I broke down in tears. I know how it feels to lose someone really close, but you had to take your pills eventually, said my therapist. For over a decade, I overheard my mother yelling at doctors that she would never give up on me despite my incurable medical condition. I just wish I could tell her that every second in this coma feels like 100 years of my body on fire while being cut by 1,000 razors. Everyone has an unchanging percentage showing how morally good they are and will be throughout their life. After devoting my life to helping others, with my kidnapper and abuser having been at 11%, I wonder what in God's name I have done or will do to receive a 0. The microbiome I made isn't doing as well as I thought it would. I decided to turn off the heat lamp that kept them alive after following their growth for only 3.8 billion years. I carefully walked around the mountains of bodies that littered the ground and let out a sigh of relief when I found someone still alive. I gazed down at God's blood-soaked body, and my blood ran cold when she urged me to run away before he found me. "I guess you don't know everything after all," my wife said smugly as I swallowed the last tasteful spoonful. "The Greek gods knew what it was in the soup right away, and you still haven't figured it out." It took several tense weeks to translate the incoming message transmitted by the approaching massive armada of alien warships. It only took a few more weeks to understand why they urgently broadcasted "flee" as they sped past Earth without slowing. The Olympic diver knew his jump had been perfect, flawless, deserving of a gold medal. Only this time, as he let himself float to the top to claim his prize, surface tension did not break. For the 40th anniversary of the school founding, they dug up the time capsule. It was slightly disappointing because all they found was a book by Daniel Steele, a box of Fruit Loops, and a newspaper announcing the death of Nelson Mandela on Robben Island. I placed the towel over her face and slowly poured the water as she desperately tried to escape. I watched in delight as she sat there confused and asked why she was covered in water, as I grabbed my equipment and prepared to visit my next elderly patient. The air you breathe is brought to you by Apple. 30 seconds is all it takes to remind you that innovation isn't just what we do, it's the very air you breathe. As the ad continues, I think to myself I should have taken a bigger breath, not sure if it will last the full 30 seconds. I paid for my new car to have the top-of-the-line safety features, like windows that could stop 50 caliber bullets. After the accident, they also stopped the first responders getting to me before the fire did. When I got my wisdom teeth out, my doctor told my mom I would over-exaggerate my pain because of my teenage girl hormones. I didn't know teenage hormones caused neck bruises in the shape of fingers, permanent nerve damage in my face, and for the medication that was supposed to put me to sleep during the surgery to not work. There's a guy in my class that could only answer 10 to any question he was asked. One day, one of my classmates went missing, and he now says 11. We decided to introduce a 2-year warranty on our products and advised our customers they could return them within that time scale with no repercussions. It was hard not to laugh seeing the heartbroken faces as the people they thought were their new parents dumped them back at the orphanage. My wife handed me the gun, tears streaming down her eyes as she couldn't bear it herself. I aimed the gun at my dad, or whatever used to be him. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. As always, I'd like to thank all the writers who let me read all these 2-sentence horrors tonight. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, share, and comment. And if you're interested in more long-form content like this, check out 242 Reads as well. The link will be down below for you guys. But as always, thank you for watching and listening. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.